What's going on, guys? It's your boy Black Fox here, back again, but this time with a restoration video. It's a little different than my custom videos, but it's still sneakers. So for you sneakerheads out here and the ones that are into seeing beat sneakers back into close to dead stock sneakers, this is for you. As you can see, these shoes seem better days. Like, there's no midsole at all. I'm assuming it was taken off by the previous owner, which it doesn't help that these sneakers are 20 years old. You see the tabs are yellowing, they're pretty much falling apart. I don't know if the camera's catching it, but you'll definitely see it on the other side. The one tab is pretty much gone. The shoe is dirty all around. The liner is pretty much dingy. It's supposed to be a lighter color than that. The white rubber is pretty much yellow from wear and age, and I'm pretty sure there's heel drag all on the bottom. Not much we can do about on the bottom, but we can try and make it look more presentable than what it is now. So there's a lot of work ahead of us, so let's get started. Like I mentioned before, the laces, they're dingy, they're dirty, they definitely need to clean up. So what I'm gonna do first is take off the laces, and it'll make it easier for me to clean the tongues and the inside of the sneakers. Plus I can put in an adjustable shoe tree by Rejuvenator and make it easier for me to clean the shoe all around. Off camera, I grabbed a microfiber towel just to catch any mess that is made during the cleaning, and the adjustable shoe trees just to see how well the fitment is inside the shoes, which is my size, is 11 and a half. So I would say go like the last hole or the second to last hole if you guys do have adjustable shoe trees. I would say use the last hole on the adjustable shoe tree if you're doing what I'm doing and taking out the insoles, because they are dirty too. Plus I do want to wear these. Or if you are keeping the insoles in, or if it's stuck and you can't get it out, I would just use the second to last hole. Before we continue to the cleaning, I'm gonna just separate the uppers from the rubber. Everything is pretty much easy to pull apart since it's 20 years old. The glue is pretty much brittle. The only thing that's holding it up is the threads between the uppers and the rubber. So what you can use is an X-Acto knife, or you can just pull it out separately, but it's a little more tedious if you do want to reuse the thread. But I have thread that's pretty much equivalent or similar to the same as used on Jordans. So I'm gonna just cut these up and then use the thread that I got. One note, if you are cutting the thread, I would cut away from yourself just to make sure you don't cut yourself, especially if you're using a brand new blade or a sharp blade. Now it's time for the satisfying part, the sneaker cleaning. I'll be using Rejuvenator Advanced Sneaker Solution, but first I'll be putting the adjustable shoe tree from Souvenir. What this will do is help me create a solid surface, at least around the toe box area. Plus, it'll buff out the creases, well, at least majority of the creasing. It won't get rid of it entirely, but it won't be as noticeable after the cleaning. It'll be even better if you, or maybe in my case, I'm gonna throw them in the washer. Though you can also use clothing to stuff the toe box, but don't do what I do. In this case, I'll be cleaning the inside since I'm gonna be wearing these, because I'm pretty sure, unless if it's clothes that you don't care about, I don't think you want to wet them or have all that dirty water get into them. To clean the uppers and the rubber, which I forgot to mention, I'll be using the 3 brushes from Souvenir, and I'll be using the advanced sneaker cleaner with the collapsible bowl from Souvenir. Disclaimer, I'm not sponsored by Souvenir, even though I'm probably going to mention it a whole bunch of times in this video. It would be nice to be sponsored by them though. So here's a better look of what, like, the before and after of cleaning the rubber. As you see, the bottom is pretty much the after and the top is before. I'm not sure if the camera's catching it, but there's a huge difference. It's still a little lighter, but they're still yellowing. But you can see that on the after, you can see like there's still exposed dirt that was hiding under, which wasn't seen before the fact. But I got something later on for that. It's safe to say it's not going to come out with the brushes, or even if I throw in the washer, it's not going to come out. Now that everything is pretty much cleaned up, next step is just throw them in the washer. I'm going to put them in sneaker laundry bags, and then I'm going to just throw them in the cycle. Just put it normal wash, low cycle. Even though, which I'll mention now, if you do clean any shoes that are more than 10 years old, just keep in mind that they will fall apart in the washer. So I would advise against this, but because I'm going to be pretty much replace everything that's on the sneakers that's falling apart, that's why I'm washing it. Plus it has a smell to it that luckily you're not going to be able to smell through the foam, but once it comes out, it'll smell much better than what it does as what is going on right now. Oh, almost forgot. You always want to clean your laces too, especially in this case where they're dingy and dirty. You just pretty much dip them in the solution and then just put your hands together and wash them. Once they're lathered up, just throw them into the sneaker laundry bag. I would advise tucking them into the shoes because they're going to fall out once you throw them into a washer. Now they're out the washer, they look a whole lot better. You can actually see the scuffs and the imperfections from the shoe. The liner is actually a lot lighter and a lot cleaner than it was before. So now, as you see, there's a bunch of old crumpled midsole that's lingering onto the upper and the rubber. To get rid of that, just use a heat gun and use a scraper to get rid of it, or you can just use acetone and cotton balls, but it'll be a bit messier. So I'm just going to start with a scraper and then get the excess glue with acetone and cotton balls. There's no before and after. On the left side is the after, the right side before. Pretty much what it looks like before the removal, and on the left is what it looks like right after, or what it should look like. You don't want to have any excess glue or the crumbling midsole on it, because what will end up happening when the new glue is put on, it won't bind perfectly, and as soon as you wear the shoe, it just falls apart. Now they got both of the rubber cleaned out, the glue removed. Now we're going to use acetone cotton balls on the rubber. The reason why is to clean it, because the next step we're going to take is we're going to deoxidize the rubber. I don't know if it's showing on camera, but the white areas is pretty much yellowed. It's pretty much showing the wear and age of the shoe. The gray has some yellow to it. The red is like a yellowish red. I'm not sure if it's catching on camera, but yeah, it pretty much shows that it's 20 years old. What this would do is pretty much help speed up the deoxidation process once I add some cream onto the shoes. Plus it'll give away any like dirt or anything that's in the crevices. Remember those little stains that was on the toe box? As you see, they're pretty much gone. You wouldn't think that acetone would help on rubber, but it makes a huge difference. As you can see, those little marks from earlier from when I was cleaning them, you can barely notice it. Like it was never even there. Pretty much I'm gonna just repeat the steps like I did with the rubber. I'm gonna heat up the uppers, or at least the glue area and the crumble midsole. Use a scraper, get rid of the excess midsole that's sticking around, and then I'm gonna use acetone cotton balls to clean up the remaining glue that's lingering. Pretty much the glue is brittle, so it's not going to take much to get rid of it, the glue. Just some simple acetone cotton balls. One little detail I do, I'm not sure if anybody else does it, so if you see like little excess of glue or midsole, you want to use your X-Acto knife to scrape it off. Just pretty much just take your time and just scribble into it, but don't go too deep into it, because it will create a hole, or you'll pretty much tear through the material. Then go back again. I would say use a Q-tip for this, and pretty much use the acetone dipped in a Q-tip and get rid of the excess. Now it's time for the deoxidation part. I'm pretty much going to use the Sole Bright method, which is hydrogen peroxide and cornstarch, but the way I'm gonna do it is the way that I've seen from John Manalo's video. Shout out to him. He pretty much mixed it in a bag and put it into a microwave just to thicken it up, and then he'll put the rubber soles into the bag and just let it sit under the sun. But in my case, I'll just use my indoor setup, which is a UV light and aluminum foil in a box. If you guys do try this method and put it in the microwave, I would say put it in for about a minute. Anything more, you're probably going to burn your house down, which nobody wants that. But yeah, just a minute, or just check in on it every like 30 seconds to see if it thickens up, and then you should be good to go. Now I have to put it into my indoor setup, which usually in cases of soles like these, you can put it in for about a couple of hours since they're not translucent. I'll put it in for about 12 hours just in case, and then I'll check in on them from there to see if we get any results. While we wait for the deoxidation process, we're pretty much going to get rid of these back tabs because, as you see, they're done, they're beat, they've seen better days. But to do that, you got to cut the thread along the elephant print, and I have no clue how to stitch the elephant print, so nor how to make a stimulate stitching. So the next best thing is to use barred super stick cement and lightly go over the threads so it doesn't come out once it's cured and I start cutting into them with X-Acto knife. For our Jordans, we're going to be using the Just Don Jordan Legacy 312, I believe that's what they're called. Only thing I know, they got the Jordan 3 midsoles and the Jordan 3 tab. I don't know how people think about these, but if you guys like them, just let me know in the comment. I would guess it'd be a trigger warning if you guys do like these. If not, then you might enjoy this separation here. Before we do separate them, we just gotta take out the insoles, because I'm going to be pouring acetone on the inside to help separate them, at least get to the midsoles. And for the back tabs, I just got to cut them out with X-Acto knife. After letting them sit for about 10 minutes, you can check and see if it's good to pull them apart. If you poured out the acetone evenly, it should be able to pull apart pretty much like nothing. So there were some blemishes on the tabs that pretty much stuck out. I don't think it will be caught on camera, but pretty much I'm gonna just use a mixture of GAC. I forgot what the number is, but it's pretty much a hardener for plastics, and I'll just use some white from Midsoles, and I'll just apply it with a regular paintbrush. Pretty much going to use the same method as I did with the elephant print onto the tabs, or at least the mid area of the tabs. I'm going to use Bar's Super 6 cement to glue on the tabs before I cut them off from behind, so the thread will stay in place. Like I mentioned before, I don't know how to do the simulated stitching or how to stitch them onto the shoe, which I'm assuming I would have to take it apart to stitch it onto the shoe. So this would be the next best thing for me. As you can see, the rubber is way better than it was earlier. The Sole Bright method pretty much takes a while, but it's worth it in the end compared to using 40 volume cream and the risk of losing traction. You can use acetone to try to regain the traction, but if it gets on the traction pod, there's not really much you can do. So as you can see, the fitment is not really compatible. Well, you gotta factor in that these shoes are from 2003 and the Legacy 312s, they came out 2018, 19, I'm not sure. Leave a comment if I'm wrong, just let me know when they did come out. But pretty much how to get this fitment to be close to the factory is shaving off the midsole. So as you see, I'm just going to take little by little from the toe area, and off camera I did use a Dremel to shave off the midsoles. You probably see on the floor it's like that little crumbliness, which that's pretty much the midsole, or if you want to call it forbidden rice or forbidden whatever you want to call it. Another useful tip is you want to take little by little, because you can't add on midsole, you can only take away from it. So if you're using a Dremel, or as you see as I'm doing, shaving away from the toe area, you just want to take a little at a time. So it's better off just to lose a little bit than a lot and then find that you took off too much. Because what ends up happening is you have to get a new midsole donor, or you'll have to finesse it somehow, which is a lot more difficult than you would think. Now that we got our fitment and the thread on the elephant print is cured, or at least the glue, now we're just going to take apart the elephant print so we can get that old crumbly tab out. Pretty much just use an X-Acto knife and slowly cut away at the thread. Like I mentioned before, you want to cut away from you so you don't risk cutting yourself. And you want to take your time cutting the thread, because you don't want to cut into the elephant print, because you're just going to create a whole another problem. Now that the glue's cured off the top part of the tabs on the donors, we're just pretty much going to do the same thing as we did with the uppers on the white cements. Since we're going to be gluing these tabs to the white cement uppers, we're going to prep them by using acetone cotton balls and prepping the back areas of the back tabs. This will ensure that we'll have a better bond when we put on the new glue, rather than having the old glue from the donors and ruining the glue job. Same thing with the back tab. We're going to use acetone cotton balls to prep the back area, so we'll have a better bond once we apply the Bar Super 6 cement. Plus, it'll give us a chance to get rid of those dirt smudges that's on the heel area. I don't know if anybody noticed it, but it's been sticking out to me the whole time, but I had to get rid of it at some point. To glue them together, you just pretty much glue the back area from the tab part down. You want to use tape around the front of it so you don't get any excess glue, and I would recommend putting tape around the edges where you would glue it on the front, so you won't get any of the excess glue onto the front of it so it doesn't look sloppy. You can use acetone cotton balls or a Q-tip to get rid of it, but we're trying to go for like one shot on this. Same thing with the back area on the sneakers. Just use the glue to apply onto the area where you want to put the tabs on. You want to use tape, so it'll help you out to align it perfectly. After waiting for about 10-15 minutes for the Bar Super Stick to cure, I'll reactivate the glue with a heat gun and set it in where the old tabs used to be. Just keep in mind you want to be really quick with this and precise, because the glue will stick, and if you try pulling it apart, it'll create like a spider web effect, and you will have to use acetone and pretty much redo these steps all over again. I would advise doing like I'm doing on the video by pretty much fitting it in first and working in smaller. After gluing the back tab, now it's time to glue back the elephant print. Since trying to stitch the elephant print would be a little bit more difficult, since you would have to deconstruct the shoe to get a cleaner look on the stitching. Otherwise, if you try to sew it back as is, the stitch line is going to show on the sock liner. The best bet would be to do what I mentioned earlier and just glue the stitch line, or you can just do a stimulate stitching and glue it back from there, the elephant print that I'm referring to. Pretty cure for about 10-15 minutes. Then we're going to reactivate the glue with a heat gun, and then we'll just clamp them together. To remove the previous paint on the midsole, I'll be using that easy spray and a paintbrush. I'll apply it on in small sections, let it sit for about 10 to 20 seconds, and then I'll scrape it off with a paint scraper. This method will prevent you from using too much acetone, plus acetone does eat up midsoles, which causes the midsole to be very porous, and when you apply paint on it, it won't look factory. I'm gonna go over the midsoles and the soles with acetone cotton balls just to make sure there's nothing that will hinder the glue job once I apply the new glue between the soles and the midsoles. First, I'm gonna apply a thin coat of glue onto the soles of the sneakers. So off camera, I've applied a thin coat of glue onto the bottom of the midsoles. Now I'm gonna apply a thin coat of glue around the edges of the uppers. Just tape around the uppers before applying the glue. Unless you have a steady hand and a lot of confidence and practice, then I would say go without tape. But there's nothing wrong with using tape around the areas where you're gonna apply glue. While waiting for the soles to cure, I'm gonna add glue to the upper part of the midsoles just to add to the curing process. I would say I'll wait about the same time as the soles, so probably like a good hour. You could do it within 5 minutes, well 5 to 7 minutes, but to get a stronger bind, I would recommend waiting for about an hour and then reheating about an hour or half hour. It's a preference, but for me, I will wait till the glue dries and then reheat it using a heat gun. After the glue dries, I'll just reactivate the bar cement super stick using a heat gun on the low setting, and then pretty much just bond the shoes together, or at least the soles and the bottom of the midsole. One quick tip: if you're using a heat gun, I would wait about 7 minutes because the glue will be too hot and it won't bond properly. It will need time to cool off. Once it cools off, it will be able to bond properly, and you won't have to worry about the spider web effect and have to make touch-ups because the glue wasn't tacky enough from the heat. So off camera, I added glue to the edge of the uppers and let it cure for about an hour. Once all the glue dries up, just same process, use a heat gun to reactivate it. In between, wait a little bit, or you can clamp them together. You'll just have to use clamps or tape to make sure it sticks together until it dries. But it has to be pretty much really clamped together, otherwise you'll get that spider web look where it's not fully clamped together or tacky enough to stay together. I recommend working heel to the toe so you can finesse on the fitments once you get to the side parts of the sneakers, and work on the toe area if it's needed, if you need to finesse the fitment from there too. Shoes are glued up, lined up. everything pretty much clean all around. Looks like it was released back in '03. The next step now is to address the porous areas on the midsole. While I was prepping the midsoles and removing the paint, there was porous areas, the imperfections of the midsole, which is pretty normal when the factory manufactures the midsole. The only way to pretty much fix that is to sand it down or use filler to mask it off. In this case, I don't have filler, so I'll just use sandpaper to mask it off as much as possible. I'll just start with 600 grit and then work my way up to 800, then 1000, then 2000, and so forth. I'm gonna prep the uppers using acetone cotton balls to get rid of the factory coat on the uppers, plus to clean off any of the mess made between the gluing and the cleaning from earlier. Now that the uppers are prepped, I'm going to use paper towels and tape to mask off the areas I don't want white paint on, which is pretty much everything except the midsoles and the uppers. This took me a little while just to pretty much get every crevice that I don't want to get paint on. Plus I'm using an airbrush, so an airbrush is not as precise as hand painting, but it does a better job when you use an airbrush. Choose finally take that cover all around. Now the next thing is to use Jacquard opaque white paint and apply it to the airbrush. You don't have to worry about straining it. It already comes pre-strained and pre-thinned out for the airbrush. If you're using any other paint besides Jacquard, I would advise using some type of paint thinner and a paint strainer, so you don't have to worry about your airbrush getting clogged or any buildup of paint to clog the airbrush. If you do use an airbrush, I would recommend doing thin coats. I would say about 3 coats worth, and then right after you can go a little heavy, just to make sure that the paint don't crack after you apply the finish and pretty much the whole project's done. Otherwise, the paint job will be for nothing and the paint will crack on the first wear. As you can see, the one side is looking a whole lot better than the side that hasn't been touched. So let's keep going. Now that the white paint's been applied, the next step is to add the black paint onto the midsoles. I'll be using Angela's black paint to apply it onto the midsole. Usually in this step, I would recommend using tape so you get a clean line job. But there's also the risk of paint leaking through onto the midsoles that you don't want to get the paint on. That, and it takes a while to get the tape on perfectly. But in this case, I'll just freehand it. You can freehand it if you want. You'll just have to touch up a lot so you can have those crisp lines. Well, it won't be perfect, but it'll be pretty much crisp from afar, but up close it will be kind of blotchy. For this, I recommend adding about 3 to 5 coats. Black is pretty thin, but it applies easily. But you want to add enough coats where it's strong enough to stay together, because otherwise, same thing, it'll crack if you put less coats. Plus, it'll look uneven if you just go with little coats. Apply the same rules, just start thin, and then about the 3rd coat, you can go a little heavier. can see, not too bad for freehanding. You can touch it up or just do little spots with tape, but overall it's not as bad. Freehanding, you just have to have a steady wrist when doing it. Midsole is fully painted out. Now it's time to fix up the elephant print. The elephant print is pretty much, it's not bad, but it can be touched up. What I'm gonna use a toothpick and a detail brush to touch up the areas that's been chipped off or damaged to replicate the elephant print. Keep in mind the shoe is 20 years old, so it's pretty normal for something like that to happen. For these are surprisingly in good condition, so the only thing they just need is just a touch up. Here's some before and after details of the elephant print. One side has been touched and the other one has been untouched. It's not too bad. I just use a heat gun in between as a recommendation, so if you do go to touch it, just to check it, and you don't have to worry about any fingerprints or any blotchy spot when you do go to touch the elephant print. Next, we're going to work on the back tabs. As you can see, the back tab color is in the right color. We're going to use sandpaper and acetone to remove that, and then we're going to apply the new color on. I believe this is 400 grit sandpaper. You can start with that and then work your way up, just in case if the back tab gets rough in the process of removing the paint. Just keep aware about the threading that was glued off earlier if you do use that method, because if you acetone it off, the thread will come off. The back tabs are finally prepped. Now the next thing is to cover everything except the back tabs and get ready for the airbrush paint. I'm gonna use paper towels and tape to prep around the back tabs, and it shouldn't take long, but it should take about a good 3 to 5 minutes. Back tab prepped up, taped up, napkined up. Next thing is to use Jacquard opaque white again to apply onto the back tab. Same thing, use light coats, especially since it's a plastic. It will definitely show if you use heavy coats. I wouldn't add any more heavy coats after the third coat. I would just keep doing light coats. Back tabs are finally painted. Now the next step is to add the details onto the Jumpman in the air. I'll be using Angel's Flat Black paint, and I'll be applying the paint on with a combination of toothpick and a detail brush. Restoration is pretty much almost done. The only thing now is to protect this work using Crumbling matte finisher onto the midsoles and uppers and the back tabs. I don't know if the camera's gonna pick it up, but there's these lint balls on the sock liner of the sneaker. That's not something that everybody likes, especially me. There's 2 ways you can go about getting rid of it. In my case, I use hair clippers, but you have to be very careful in doing it because you can rip and cut the sock liner. Another safer route is using a lint shaver. I don't have a lint shaver, so this would be the best bet if for those that don't have lint shavers. After trimming off the lint, just use a brush and brush off the excess lint. Here's a before and after. If the camera picks it up, one side's pretty much been touched up with the clippers and the other side has been untouched. It's a huge difference, and it's a lot cleaner than walking around with sock lint all over the sock iron. I believe this should be the last step before lacing them up, is replacing the thread that we took off earlier in the video. I'll be using a sewing awl in white thread that I found on Amazon. I believe it's T270. It's the closest thing to the factory thread used on Jordan 3s. I'll just pretty much do the loop method. I believe there's videos that are on YouTube about it. I'm not sure how to explain it fully in depth, but if you do get a chance to look it up, I would recommend looking into it. It's much better than using a patcher or a cobbler. You'll just have to be careful not to stab yourself when putting the loops into the shoe or pulling the thread inside the shoe. So my advice would be to apply the sewing awl perpendicular from your fingers. That, or wear the finger caps that people wear when they're sewing. I'm not sure what they're called. Leave it down in the comments if anybody knows what the actual name of them are. I just know them as finger caps. Thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys like this video, make sure to leave a like and leave a comment if you guys like to see future restoration videos. If you guys also like customization videos, make sure to subscribe as I upload customization videos, and more than likely will upload restoration videos in the future. Just leave a comment what you guys want to see or possibly see. Just let me know. Until next time, this is Black Fox, and I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.